everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday, and thank you for joining me for today's video. We've got a lot to talk about, including that powerful system that will work its way through the east starting really tomorrow. So we're now starting to get with that storm knocking on the doorstep, and then that will eventually work its way through the country and be done going into a pretty nice and pleasant weekend. So we'll talk about that in today's video. We will also talk about the different kind of factors the system will bring, including severe weather as well as winter weather. And then we're going to talk about the long range and look at the general pattern and see if maybe we can get winter to return going late into January. And I think just maybe we'll get a window to open up here after about the next 10 days of maybe the higher chance of seeing winter weather here in the east. Remember, it is still early in the winter and we have plenty of time to go, so do not lose hope yet, and make sure you stay tuned for that at the end of the video. Other than that, tell me where you're watching from and what you want to see out of this pattern, and tell me if you want to see a pattern change into more of a snowy pattern here across the east. I know personally I would love to, but I will give you my honest opinion. I will not wish cast, as some people like to say, snow into the forecast, but I will be honest and tell you what I think. Other than that, though, if you like the video, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe, because we are experiencing some great growth on this channel and I don't want you to miss out on that and the weather as it changes going later into January. So I think that's enough of me rambling on. Let's go ahead and look at the weather. So starting with our satellite, like we like to do, getting some, maybe some showers working here through sections of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast this afternoon, but overall quiet along most of the east coast today. But you do see out here into California, look at this storm beginning to really ramp up. You see this low pressure here right off the coast of Northern California there near the Eugene area, and right off the coast of Southern Oregon as well. And what this is going to do is eventually set up our next system. It's going to get going here right outside of the Rockies before eventually pushing up through the Ohio River Valley, bringing severe storms here to the south, and then winter storm conditions here to northern New England, with rain and stormy weather all in between those two zones. So let's go ahead and look ahead. Looking at our current hazards, again, all quiet here across the east right now. We've had a relatively good start to this week here in Charlotte, as classes have been getting back up and I've been going to class. It's been nice, a little cold in the morning, so still seasonable this week, but nothing out of the ordinary here. Looking out west, though, that's where we have most of the active weather still, with those winter weather advisories in the mountains as well as winter storm warnings, and then those flash flood watches and warnings further inland and in those lower elevation areas that have continued to be pummeled really over the past 2 weeks now. This train of storms has not let up for those of you out west. Looking at tomorrow's forecast, did want to show you this. High temperatures for tomorrow here is what you're looking at. So again, a nice day, almost spring-like. It will warm up a bit more tomorrow than it even has been the past day or two. As that system begins to ramp up, it'll help to pull up some of that warmer air from the Gulf, leading to those warmer temperatures for much of us, even getting into the 80s out here into sections of Texas. Super impressive stuff there for January, but the mid-Atlantic 50s and 60s ongoing further to the south, and then you start getting into the 40s and then below freezing as you get into New England. Here for the Ohio River Valley, 50s, and again 60s the further south you go. As for our Gulf states, Florida, pretty much 70s throughout the state and along much of the Gulf Coast. Some of you even hitting 80 potentially there on the Gulf Coast tomorrow afternoon. Looking at tomorrow night's lows, again, you can see where that front is going to begin to set up as we deal with that system beginning out here tomorrow night. So, very warm night tomorrow night for most of us in the east, at least seasonably, with temperatures in the 40s and 30s throughout the mid-Atlantic, and then areas right ahead of that cold front not getting below 60 potentially, especially the further south you go. So, find your state, find your general area, and you can see the numbers there for what you can expect. All right, so looking at this storm as we prepare to get ready for it, I guess, going here into the middle of the week. Start by looking at our models here. This is for tomorrow afternoon here on the GFS. You see here our storm getting going out here into the Oklahoma Panhandle up into Kansas. And we'll go ahead and bring this ahead of time into Wednesday night here. You see that rain breaking out here for many of us from really New Orleans up through Tennessee, Kentucky, into Ohio and Indiana, and we'll watch for this band of snow on the backside of this. I don't think anything too crazy out of it, but some of us will see some snow out of this here into the Midwest. As we bring this ahead into Thursday afternoon, that's when we have that severe storm risk here into the southeast, and we'll take a look at that next after we look at the Euro model. And again, watch out here for that potential of maybe a quick band of heavy snow on the back end of this storm system. But also, tomorrow afternoon, expect that snow to begin up here into northern New England, and those are the people that are really going to get the most out of this storm. I think maybe even potentially the far northern tip of Maine, if I have anybody watching from there. Although I doubt it, you may stay snow the entire time through the storm, so you could get, a foot of snow there in extreme northern Maine out of this. But as we ramp this up into Thursday afternoon and evening, that line of severe storms continue to push through the Carolinas and Georgia. We'll see if, how far north that severe weather can get, but I expect especially South Carolina and Georgia to have that chance of severe weather going into your Thursday afternoon and evening. And again, if I have anyone watching in Canada, a pretty good chance of heavy snow here on the northern and even the western side of this low. I talked about this in yesterday's video. If you kind of draw a banana shape around this low, follow that general area, and that's who will see the snow from this low pressure as it continues to trek through the region. All right, so going here into Friday overnight, look at that heavy snow working its way here into parts of northern New England. And then on the south side of that in rain, we have very heavy rainfall working in off the Atlantic here, up through Cape Cod, into Long Island, New Jersey, and really that warm air surging as far north as the mountains of Vermont. So seeing rain in the mountains of Vermont here going into the middle of January is definitely not something you want to see, and I know ski country probably is not happy about that. But as this begins to move out going into our Friday afternoon, maybe some back-end snow out of this here into New England. But also note this northwest flow kicking up down here from the Smokies up through West Virginia. This has been a big story we've been talking about with this. A lot of those areas here in the mountains that haven't seen too much snow this year could potentially finally cash in a little bit here. I think especially into West Virginia and the Smokies. And then as the system finally pulls out going into Friday evening, maybe even some leftover snow showers on the back end of this into sections of New England before Saturday afternoon rolls around and we have quite a clear day here throughout the east. What we do want to watch out for when we're talking about this, if this secondary low can form here and potentially try to ride up the coast on the back end of this storm, it could produce, a swath of snow here into New England and the northern mid-Atlantic. Model trends today have been kind of against that general idea, although they keep that low pressure, most of them, as you can see here on the GFS. It's just a bit too far offshore. But one thing I will say, a lot of the times in the short range, we see these things like to trend northwest. So if I'm in somewhere like Cape Cod, maybe even Boston, the coastal areas here, I'd watch this because you see kind of some of these blue colors getting close here to the coast. So I don't think anything blockbuster out of this, like I said in yesterday's video, but potentially some of that could overlap with some of our coastal areas. So up the I-95 corridor, maybe even the coastal areas, still has a chance at maybe some of that snow going into Saturday, and we will continue to monitor that. We have a couple days to watch the trends on that as well. So we'll take a look at our Euro model here, and I'm actually going to reload the page real quick. Sorry about that. Anyway, though, here on the Euro, once again, going into tomorrow afternoon, this system gets going here, just like the GFS showed, and overall a similar scenario here. Thursday afternoon here on the the Euro, severe storms here in the southeast, and then rainy weather here throughout the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys. And then as we get into our Thursday night, that snow begins to break out here into northern New England, with raining conditions all along the I-95, really stretching from Savannah, Georgia, up through New York City and Boston, going into Thursday evening. And again, maybe some back-end snow, rain-snow mix there into sections of Indiana and Ohio. Moving this ahead into time, again, watch for that very heavy snow here into extreme northern Maine going into your Friday. And then that, northwest flow kicks up as we've been talking about before eventually this finally pulls out. And again, we'll watch maybe, a secondary low trying to form here going into Saturday. The Euro here, still far offshore, but we'll watch to see if maybe that can trend northwest. Although right now looks pretty clear for most of those areas. So let's break these threats down. We'll start here with the severe weather threat, and then we will go into that snow that will likely fall. So, Storm Prediction Center here has a slight risk area here from really Birmingham up through Atlanta and to the Georgia, South Carolina border up towards Toccoa, Georgia. So, again, this is Thursday. We'll look for some of those severe storms, and we'll look at some of those ingredients and look a little more in depth at futurecasts for all of these areas. So starting in the southeast here, again, pretty clear before getting into Thursday morning. This line of storms will finally start to get going here into Mississippi, but it's once we get into Thursday afternoon here that this line of storms should be able to gain some strength and begin to produce more of that severe weather threat as we gain some instability. So a line of storms stretching from the Gulf of Mexico up to Tennessee, potentially causing severe weather. I think mainly dealing with a straight line wind threat currently with this, but a couple isolated tornadoes cannot be ruled out with this line of storms. That then pushes through the GSP area going into Friday afternoon. And then around Friday evening, watch into areas of Charlotte, Columbia, and down into the Tallahassee area, seeing that line of storms going into sunset on Thursday before we finally clear out here into the southeast going into Friday evening and into Saturday. All right, let's go ahead and take a look now at our significant tornado parameters. So what this shows is how well the ingredients are for some of those tornadoes to potentially form with this severe weather risk. So we'll bring this ahead into time. Again, I don't think the tornado threat's huge here, but we do nonetheless have that threat. You see here on Thursday afternoon, some of those colors mixing their way here into Birmingham, that Tuscaloosa area, here into central Alabama. Again, nothing off the charts here, but enough to mention that we do have a tornado threat. Then that threat going into Thursday afternoon shifts off towards Atlanta, Macon, and then eventually even stretching its way up into the Carolinas as well, going into Thursday evening, before that line of storms clears out going into Friday morning. I misspoke earlier saying Saturday morning. Going into Friday morning, we'll begin to clear out here into the southeast, so I apologize about that. Anyway, now let's go ahead and look at more in-depth view here for our mid-Atlantic areas and see where we're going to see that rain and who can see some good old-fashioned mountain snow out of this as well. So, starting this off, going into Wednesday, tomorrow, a relatively clear day, but we should have some of that cloudier, cloudier, I guess is a word, sorry, moving through the area, and then maybe some showers as well with that, and potentially some snow mixing in here at our higher elevations tomorrow afternoon. But that is just kind of the appetizer for the main event. As we go into Thursday is whenever this will really ramp up for us here in the mid-Atlantic. So this is Thursday afternoon. You see again this line of showers and storms further to the south moving through. Rain for everybody, including the mountains at this time, but that will change later on. So, a place like Raleigh up towards D.C. getting in on that, likely into the overnight on Thursday, with, heavy downpours ongoing before the rain mainly clears out again going into Friday afternoon. We should just be left with this really nice northwest mountain snow ongoing Friday afternoon. And that will continue throughout Friday afternoon, lightening up as we get into Saturday, that northwest flow finally beginning to ramp down. All right, looking at the northeast now and the futurecast through this area. Going into your Wednesday afternoon, again, pretty clear here throughout the northeast and into New England. Southern areas could get in on some of that rain and maybe even some snow mixing in that I mentioned with the mid-Atlantic. Go ahead and bring this further ahead into time. It's once we get into Thursday afternoon here into New England that we really begin to see that precipitation ramp up. Maybe starting off as a little bit of snow here through Boston, but that will quickly change to rain. Most areas here will quickly change to rain throughout a lot of sections, but maybe a quick thumping of snow here, especially into the mountains of New Hampshire and Vermont going into your Thursday evening. And then as the storm really ramps up going into the overnight on Thursday, again, that strong Atlantic flow bringing this very heavy rain as well as relatively warm conditions, likely into the 50s here into coastal areas of New England as the storm begins to ramp up. But here, into sections of Maine, that heavy snow continues to lock in as you have just enough cold air to work with. And then as we move ahead into our Friday morning, this line of showers tries to work its way offshore. So by the time you're waking up Friday, likely still some rain left around, but once we get to Friday afternoon, should be a lot better in terms of rain, although likely still some cloudy weather and some drizzly weather, but nothing nearly as bad as Thursday night will be. And then again, some leftover snow showers here on the back end for most areas here, enhanced by some of those lakes. And then once again, Saturday looks pretty clear. We'll watch to see if maybe some of this moisture can work its way over coastal areas and maybe produce some snow. All right, so we'll talk about that next, that chance of maybe that coastal low trying to produce some snow here for some of us. We'll start here with our GFS ensembles. So again, watch this low pressure and then watch how it tries to phase off the coast here. We get some of those members to show another low forming here right off the coast. Here on the GFS, again, you see that it's not really as much phasing, I guess, anymore as it is just a completely different low forming. But, you know, it's not the best setup here for us, but it's close enough that if we can get trends, if we get some of these members here that are a bit closer to the coast, could definitely see some light snow here through sections of the I-95 corridor going into Saturday. So that is the GFS ensembles. Take a look at the Euro ensembles now. Again, here is our main low working its way through here on Friday. But as we move this ahead into time, our Euro ensembles do a bit of a different story here than the GFS. The GFS forms a completely different low down here and moves it, off back into the Atlantic Ocean. Our Euro ensembles here a bit different. You can see the Euro does more of a phasing scenario and tries to phase, and we get a lot more of those ensemble members off the shore. So if you're rooting for snow for Saturday here into sections of the I-95 corridor, you're rooting for the Euro and some of these ensemble members that try to bring this low pressure, further offshore here, which could potentially bring in enough cold air to work with for a marginal setup for some snow. But nothing set in stone right now, and right now I would forecast not much of anything, and if anyone does see anything, I would right now look more towards the Cape Cod area. All right, but looking at the snow totals here for most of us, this is our blend of models, so all of our models put together here. Looking down here into the mountains, though, look at this nice northwest flow event down towards, Boone and those areas into North Carolina. I think 1 to 3 inches is a pretty safe bet for most of those higher elevations. Up into West Virginia, I think 3 to 5 is probably a safer bet. So 1 to 3 into the Smokies and then 3 to 5 up towards West Virginia out of this system. Looking at the Northeast here, these snow totals you see here at the coast, this is what is hinting at maybe snow here on the back end of this, and I'll show you that in a second. But first I do want to mention here, of course, into northern Maine, that's really going to be the bullseye for the storm. I think 6 to 12 inches of snow is likely there into the northern bits of Maine. And then other areas, maybe 1 to 3 inches falling quick enough here into this pocket before changing over to rain. But anyway, moving this further ahead into time. Actually, sorry, I was going to go back and show you. So you see how these totals begin to build up here into Maine. If I could use this map correctly, sorry. So again, this is Friday night, Saturday morning. You see all these totals in Maine, and then I want you to watch on the coast here how we see some more lighter colors begin to fill in going into Saturday. You see that quick little burst there. So again, that's the models indicating just maybe we do get that secondary low to produce some light snow here into coastal areas. So, if you're watching in New York City, you're not out of it. You got a chance at maybe some light snow on Saturday here on the back end of this. Other than snow, though, we will be dealing with a lot of rain. So we'll take a look at that now here throughout the east. Not a ton of it, but, 1 to 2 inches of rain pretty likely here, I think, throughout the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. And then, localized heavier spots seeing a little bit more, but not too much of a washout. But either way, everyone here east of the Mississippi will see rain from this system nonetheless. All right, so taking a look at the long-term pattern, I did say I was going to touch on this and talk about maybe we can finally switch into more of a wintry pattern here into the east going later into January. So as I move this map ahead, I want you to watch these blue colors, and you'll see them continue to roll in off the Pacific before you eventually see some changes once we get past 10 days here. So watch these blue colors here. And actually, I'm going to reload this page too because it appears it needs that. But anyway, watch these blue colors here. As we move ahead into time, that's this weekend's storm. And then there's another storm moving in with that next shade of blue into California. And then more blue, more blue. But once we get out to about day 10 here, I want you to watch these orange colors out into the Pacific, signaling that it'll try to form a bit of ridging out here, which will help block this continual flow of storms we've seen into California and this very zonal flow that has been allowing all of these storms to, cut up north and bring warmer conditions here to the east. Watch out here about day 10 and beyond. You see that ridging build out west. So you have ridging here and now troughing into the east and then ridging back up towards this area. This is much more of a favorable look for snow in the east. And then as we get even further out, this gets way more favorable. You see blocking out here into the Pacific, ridging out there, and then troughing here into the east, and then ridging again back up into Greenland. So what that does is help to potentially funnel colder air here into the United States. And then with a jet stream track like this, you can get those storms to potentially ride into more of a favorable path for winter weather here into the east. And then the GFS here tries to continue that in the 10 to 14 day period. So we'll watch out for that. It's a good signal, but it is far out there. So of course, right now we just have to look to see if we can get a general pattern change. But I do personally think going into the end of January, the chance for severe weather winter weather will definitely increase in the east as we finally begin to break down that pattern. And I talked about this again in a tweet. Again, I posted this December 28th, so my mind has been pretty made up on this, but you can go ahead and read this if you like. Anyway, I just talk about how I think the pattern will change middle and late January, and I think that may come to fruition. So I'll hope for that. It'll be some brownie points for my forecasting skills. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe. Again, we're making tremendous progress here on this channel and doing some pretty incredible things. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.